Every human being on Earth, regardless of culture, language, or era, does something that no other animal on this planet does. And it is not what you think. It is not tool use. Chimpanzees craft tools from sticks and stones. It is not language. Dolphins communicate with complex clicks and whistles. It is not even self-awareness. Elephants recognize themselves in mirrors. The one thing that only humans do, the single behavior that separates us from every other species, alive or extinct, is cry emotional tears. Not cry out, not wail, not scream, but produce actual liquid tears that roll down our cheeks because we feel something. And for decades, scientists had no idea why. To understand what makes emotional crying so strange, you first need to know that not all tears are the same. Your eyes produce 3 completely different types. Basal tears are the ones you never notice, a thin, constant film that keeps your corneas lubricated every second of every day. Reflex tears are the ones that flood your eyes when you chop an onion or walk into a gust of wind, a defensive flush designed to wash away irritants. And then there are psychic tears, the third type, the ones that fall when you hold your newborn child for the first time, or when you stand at a funeral and feel the weight of someone's absence. These emotional tears are unique to human beings. No other creature on Earth produces them. And here is the part that stunned researchers. They are chemically different from every other tear your body makes. In the 1980s, biochemist William Frey at the St. Paul Ramsey Medical Center in Minnesota conducted a landmark study. He collected reflex tears from volunteers by exposing them to freshly cut onions, and then collected emotional tears by having the same people watch sad films. When he analyzed both samples, he discovered something remarkable. Reflex tears were mostly saline, simple salt water doing a simple job. But emotional tears were a cocktail of complex chemicals. They contained adrenocorticotropic hormone, known as ACTH, one of the body's primary stress hormones. They contained leucine and kephalin, a natural painkiller produced by the brain. They contained elevated levels of cortisol and prolactin. Crying, Frey realized, was not just an emotional expression. It was a biological purge. Your body was literally flushing stress chemicals out through your eyes.
Decades later, photographer and artist Rose-Lynn Fisher took this discovery into an entirely new dimension. In her project, The Topography of Tears, she collected over 100 samples of human tears and examined them under a high-powered microscope. She gathered tears of mourning from people who had just lost someone. She collected tears of reunion, tears of laughter, tears shed while peeling garlic. What she found was astonishing. Tears of grief formed jagged, fractured landscapes that looked like aerial photographs of drought-stricken earth. Tears of joy crystallized into delicate branching patterns resembling cherry blossoms. Tears from chopping onions looked like flat, unremarkable mineral deposits. The same substance, produced by the same glands, looked completely different depending on the emotion behind it. Each slide told a different story. Your tears, it turned out, carried a fingerprint of your inner state, a map of feeling frozen in salt. But the deeper question remained. Why would evolution build such an elaborate system? Why would natural selection favor an animal that leaks fluid from its eyes when it feels sad? Ad Vingerhoets, a professor of clinical psychology at Tilburg University in the Netherlands and one of the world's foremost researchers on crying, proposed a compelling answer. Tears, he argued, evolved as an honest signal. In the ruthless economy of survival, trust is everything. You can fake a smile. You can fake laughter. You can force your voice to tremble. But producing genuine emotional tears on command is nearly impossible for most people. That is what makes them so powerful. When someone sees you cry, they know your distress is real. Tears became a biological guarantee of vulnerability, a signal that could not be easily counterfeited, and that made them invaluable. This idea connects to one of the oldest survival mechanisms in human development. Every baby is born crying. That first scream, that first flood of tears is not random. It is a precisely calibrated distress signal designed to hijack the attention of every adult within earshot. Infants cannot speak, cannot point, cannot explain what they need. All they can do is cry. And it works because crying triggers something deep and involuntary in the observer. Neuroscience research has shown that seeing someone cry activates mirror neurons in the brain of the person watching, generating a shadow of the same distress. It also stimulates the release of oxytocin, the hormone associated with bonding and compassion. Adult crying, Vingerhoets suggests, is simply an extension of this infant survival mechanism, a plea for help that we never fully outgrow.
If crying is biological, then why do men and women cry so differently? The data is striking. On average, women cry between 30 and 64 times per year, while men cry between 6 and 17 times per year. But the answer behind this gap is not what most people assume. Studies have consistently shown that boys and girls cry at almost identical rates throughout childhood. The divergence begins around age 12, precisely when cultural socialization intensifies. Boys are told to toughen up, to hold it in, to stop crying like a girl. Testosterone may slightly raise the threshold for tears, but it does not eliminate the capacity. The difference is overwhelmingly cultural, not biological. And that cultural variation stretches across the globe in fascinating ways. In Japan, a practice called rui-katsu, literally tear-seeking, has become a popular stress relief movement. People gather in groups, watch emotionally powerful films or read moving stories, and cry together on purpose because they understand what Western culture often denies, that crying is not weakness, it is maintenance. The consequences of denying this are real. Research from Tilburg University has found that people who habitually suppress crying show higher rates of cardiovascular disease, increased anxiety, and measurably weakened immune function. The stress chemicals that Frey found in emotional tears do not simply vanish if you hold them back. They stay in your body, circulating, accumulating, doing damage. Crying is not a breakdown of composure. It is a release valve engineered by millions of years of evolution. And what about other animals? Elephants vocalize in grief and have been observed standing silently over their dead for hours. Baby mammals wail for their mothers. Sea otters have been observed holding their dead young against their chests. Chimpanzees scream and thrash when separated from their group. The emotional capacity is clearly there, but none of them produce chemically distinct emotional tears. None of them have evolved this specific, silent, liquid signal of inner pain. Humans stand alone in this, and that loneliness tells us something profound about what we are. We are not just social animals. We are animals that evolved to show each other, honestly and unmistakably, when we are hurting. Here is the twist that researchers like Vingerhoets keep coming back to. Crying may be one of the most important social technologies humans ever evolved, arguably more important than language itself for building the foundations of trust. Think about it. Before our ancestors had words, before syntax or grammar or storytelling existed, they had tears. A tear rolling down a face needed no translation. It crossed every barrier that language later had to be invented to bridge. And if that idea fascinates you, the question of how humans eventually did build language from nothing, we explored exactly that in our previous video, How Humans Invented Language. Because tears may have been our first words, but they were certainly not our last.